Something very odd has been going on in gaming recently. We're living in a time where there are more games releasing than at any point in history. Thousands of titles are released every year. Game Pass, PlayStation Plus, and others like it offer libraries with hundreds of games at the click of a button. The hardware that's making these games has become more powerful than developers could have ever dreamed of 20 years ago. By almost every measurable standard, this should be the greatest time to be a gamer. And yet, millions of players keep going back. Back to games they finished years ago, back to worlds they've already explored, and back to stories that they already know by heart. Even more surprising, some of the most anticipated releases today aren't brand new ideas at all. They're remakes, remasters, prequels, and reimaginings of games that defined previous generations. But why? Why are players celebrating the return of those familiar worlds when the industry is capable of creating almost anything today? Has gaming, like Hollywood, simply run out of ideas? Or is something much bigger happening beneath the surface? Because I don't think we're buying nostalgia. I think we're buying something else entirely as gamers. We're buying trust. Let me explain. Gaming has never been bigger. Development budgets have climbed into the hundreds of millions of dollars. Studios employ thousands of developers across the globe. Marketing campaigns rival Hollywood blockbusters. On paper, this should mean better games than ever before. But something curious has happened over the last several years. Some of the loudest excitement in gaming isn't surrounding brand new IPs. It's surrounding games we've already played. The announcements for games like Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced, Halo Campaign Evolved, and Gears of War E-Day have generated enormous hype because they're tied to franchises players already know and trust. Even Nintendo continues to keep winning by bringing back their iconic catalog while introducing them to new audiences. That's not an accident. It's becoming a pattern. Look at what people spend their evenings playing. Minecraft, Grand Theft Auto 5, PUBG, Counter-Strike 2. Some of these games are more than a decade old, yet they continue attracting millions of players despite an endless stream of new releases. At first glance, the explanation seems obvious. People are nostalgic. Case closed. Except that explanation doesn't actually answer the question, because nostalgia fades. If nostalgia was the only thing needed to keep these games alive, players would revisit them for a weekend, smile, and move on. Instead, many of these games have become permanent homes. Players return year after year not just to remember them, but because they're still genuinely fun to play. That suggests something deeper is happening. The question isn't, why do we love old games? The real question is, why have so many of us become cautious about the new ones? Think about how buying a game has changed. Years ago, we walked into a Best Buy, a GameStop, or if you're old enough, even a Babbage's, and picked up the latest release from your favorite developer, and expected it to work the moment you got home. Today, that confidence isn't always there. Instead, we often ask a different set of questions. Should I wait for reviews? Is this game actually finished, or will it be fixed after launch? What if there's not enough content? Is the deluxe edition worth another $30, or sometimes close to twice the price of the base game in some cases? These aren't cynical questions, they're practical ones. Over the past few years, several high-profile AAA launches, including Cyberpunk, Battlefield 2042, and Suicide Squad, they all received criticism for issues ranging from technical problems to gameplay design and to live service implementation. Not every launch failed for the same reasons, but together they contributed to a broader trend. Many of us became more willing to wait before buying, and waiting has become part of modern gaming. Instead of pre-ordering, many consumers wait for reviews, then patches, then discounts, and then complete editions. That's a dramatic shift in buying behavior. And when new games increasingly feel like uncertain investments, both in money and time, a game you are familiar with becomes much more attractive. A game you already love doesn't need to prove itself. You already experienced it. You already know it respects your time. That's the power publishers are tapping into when they bring back beloved franchises. They aren't just simply marketing to bait your nostalgia. They're marketing to gain your certainty. Because in today's gaming landscape, certainty has become one of the most valuable things a game can offer. And once you start looking at the industry through that lens, a lot of seemingly unrelated trends suddenly begin to make sense. There was a time when buying a game from your favorite developer felt almost automatic. If a studio had earned your trust, you rarely questioned the purchase. You didn't spend hours scrolling through reviews. You didn't wait for YouTube benchmarks. You didn't ask whether the game would be playable at launch. You simply bought it, went home, and played. That confidence wasn't built overnight. It was earned over years of consistently delivering complete games. Trust is fragile, and it takes years to build, but only a few bad experiences to lose it. The financial commitment when purchasing a new game has increased as well. Standard editions of many AAA releases now launch at $70, while deluxe editions frequently cost $90, $100, or even $120. For many players, that's no longer an impulse purchase. That's an investment. And every investment comes with a simple question. What if this isn't worth it? And that question becomes even more important when the game also asks for something just as valuable as money: your time. Modern games don't just compete for your wallet. They compete for your schedule. Many modern AAA games aren't designed to be finished. They're designed to be daily logins. Battle passes, daily objectives, seasonal events, weekly challenges, and limited time rewards. These systems aren't inherently bad. A lot of players enjoy having reasons to return after a weekly reset or to complete daily challenges. But that also changes the relationship between the player and the game. Instead of asking, was this experience worth my time? Players increasingly ask, can I even keep up? That feeling becomes even stronger when several games are asking for your attention at the same time. One wants your weekends, another wants your evenings. A third introduces a new season before you've even finished the previous one. Eventually, something has to give. And for many of us, it's that willingness to take a chance on something new. Now, to be clear, no developer sets out to disappoint players. They wouldn't make much money if they did. And today, game development has never been more complex. Teams are larger, technology is more demanding, and player expectations are higher than ever. Every game represents years of work from thousands of talented and not so talented people. But consumers don't experience challenges that developers experience during the development process. They experience the final product. And over the past several years, several high-profile releases have launched with problems that left lasting impressions. Cyberpunk's launch was laughably bad. It became one of the industry's most disastrous launches because of the severe performance issues, the clipping into the world, and whatever this is. Battlefield 2042 faced criticism over technical problems, missing features compared to the previous entries, and tanks driving up the sides of buildings. Skull and Bones spent years in development, only to receive a mixed reception after release, and Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League divided audiences over its live service structure and gameplay direction. Each game had its own story. Each, whether you agree or not, had different strengths and weaknesses. But from the perspective of consumers, they all reinforced the same lesson. Maybe we shouldn't buy on day one. This shift has quietly changed the gaming culture. 20 years ago, if we waited 6 months to buy a game, there is no chance we would have avoided spoilers. Today, waiting can mean getting a better version of the game, more patches, more content, better performance, lower price, sometimes all these things. The result is a generation of players that have become increasingly patient, not because they're less excited, but because experience has taught them that patience often pays off. And every time someone delays a consumer from making that purchase, publishers have to work harder to earn that sale back. I believe this is where many conversations about nostalgia miss the point. People often assume players are returning to older games simply because we miss being younger. I'm sure that's true for some of us, but think about the last game that you replayed. Was it because you wanted to relive childhood memories? Maybe. Or was it because you already knew it was worth your time? You already knew the mechanics. You already knew the world. You already knew the experience would deliver what it promised. That's not nostalgia, that's confidence. And that's what publishers are trying to sell you today. Because every great game leaves behind more than memories. It leaves behind credibility. The next time that franchise returns, whether it's a remake, a remaster, or a prequel, it doesn't start from zero. It starts with the years of goodwill already in the bank. That's an advantage that brand new games simply just do not have. And once you understand that, you begin to realize something important. The biggest product that publishers are selling today, it's not their graphics, it's not the bigger worlds, it's not longer campaigns. They're trying to sell you confidence. And confidence is something that the gaming industry has spent years trying to earn back. By now, it's easy to reach a simple conclusion. People love old games because they're nostalgic, It's an explanation that we hear all the time, and on the surface, it makes sense. Seeing an iconic character return, hearing an amazing soundtrack, or revisiting a world you haven't explored in years, those moments invoke powerful emotions. But nostalgia doesn't explain why some remakes become massive hits while others disappear almost as quickly as they arrive. If nostalgia alone sold games, every remake would be a guaranteed hit. Clearly, that's not the case. So what separates success and failure? The answer isn't nostalgia. It's confidence. Think about the decisions that we make when making a purchase. Whether it's buying a car, choosing a restaurant, or downloading a new game, we're constantly trying to reduce uncertainty. We look for reviews, recommendations, past experiences, anything that helps us answer one question. Can I trust this? Gaming is no different. When a publisher announces a remake of a beloved classic, they're not asking us to trust something entirely new. They're asking players to revisit a game that already proved itself years ago. That familiarity makes us feel more comfortable. We already know the world. We already understand the gameplay. We already have confidence that the core experience works. In other words, nostalgia gets your attention, but trust earns your money. There's an important difference there. Because if nostalgia were enough, publishers wouldn't invest years rebuilding these games with modern technology, updated controls, and quality of life features. They understand something fundamental. Players don't simply want old memories. We want those old memories delivered with the same love and care that earned our trust in the first place. There's another reason older games continue to resonate with us today. Not because they're perfect, but because they were built under very different constraints. Developers couldn't rely on massive storage space, they couldn't create maps hundreds of square miles wide, and they couldn't fix major issues after a launch with a 50-gigabyte patch. Every level mattered, every mechanic had to justify its place, and every boss fight needed a purpose. Hardware limitations forced developers to make difficult decisions. If something wasn't fun, it often didn't make the final cut. That's one reason why so many classic titles still feel like they were made with more love and care than titles today. Not because they had more technology, but because they had less. Limitations encouraged discipline. Listen to that again. Limitations encouraged discipline. And that discipline often produced experiences where nearly every moment felt carefully considered. As technology improved, something else changed as well. Games became bigger, quests became longer, progression systems became more intricate. Again, none of these things are inherently bad. Some of the greatest games ever made feature enormous worlds and hundreds of hours of content. The issue isn't size, it's purpose. Listen to these two questions publishers ask themselves. How do we make this game as fun as possible? And how do we keep players engaged for as long as possible? At first, those questions sound almost identical, but they lead to a very different set of priorities. A game built around fun sometimes asks, what can be removed to improve pacing? A game built around engagement often asks, what can be added to encourage players to stay longer? More collectibles, more currency, more daily activities. Sometimes these additions make the game better. Sometimes they just make it take longer. And players have become remarkably good at recognizing the difference. One phrase that developers love to hear from their audience is, "This game respected my time." That's an incredibly powerful compliment. It doesn't necessarily mean the game was short or easy. It means that every hour, every moment felt worthwhile. Every challenge taught you something. Every reward felt earned. Every system had a purpose. When players return to games like Skyrim, Minecraft, or Counter-Strike, we're not just revisiting old memories. We're returning to experiences we know will reward the time we invest. That's why trust and design are so closely connected. Good design creates memorable experiences. Memorable experiences create trust. And that trust creates confidence in the publisher. It's a cycle that can't be manufactured through marketing alone. It has to be earned, which brings us to one final misconception. Players value trust so much, then why are some live service games thriving while so many others struggle? The answer reveals even more about what gamers are really looking for. At this point, you might be thinking, if trust is the real issue, then why are some live service games still incredibly successful? It's a fair question, because despite what social media might suggest, live service games are not dying. Bad live service games are. For years, you probably heard the phrase, gamers hate live service games. But the evidence tells a much different story. Some of the biggest games in the world today are built entirely around the live service model. Fortnite, Final Fantasy XIV, Roblox, Marathon. Well, at least Destiny 2 is doing well. Millions of players continue logging onto these games every week. Not because we're forced to, because we want to. That tells us something incredibly important. The business model isn't what players reject, it's the experience surrounding it. A successful live service game isn't built on the promise of future content. It's built on a foundation that convinces players the game deserves our time today. The updates, the events, the seasons, those are all bonuses, not substitutes for a compelling experience. Take Destiny 2, for example. After years of expansions, system overhauls, and community feedback, it continues attracting players during events like Moments of Triumph. Not every update has been universally praised, but the game has built a loyal audience by offering satisfying gameplay, cooperative experiences, and a community that many players continue to enjoy and want to continue for years to come. This trust wasn't created by their battle pass. It was earned over years of supporting the game and responding, sometimes imperfectly, to player feedback. Now compare that to live service projects that launched without establishing that same relationship. Some arrived with technical problems, others lacked meaningful in-game content. Some couldn't even communicate a clear identity beyond future roadmaps. Players didn't abandon these games because they were live service. They abandoned them because they hadn't yet earned confidence. And trust can't be scheduled on a content calendar. It must be experienced. This helps explain another trend we've been seeing across the industry. Publishers aren't just making more remakes because they're easier. In many cases, they're making them because they're safer. A beloved franchise already has something that new intellectual properties don't: a proven relationship with the player. Now, that doesn't guarantee success. A poorly executed remake can still disappoint audiences. But starting with an established foundation dramatically lowers the uncertainty for both the publisher and the player. They are betting on a familiar brand, and we are betting on a familiar experience. Both are trying to reduce the risk, and in today's market, risk matters more than ever. Here's the interesting part. This story isn't entirely pessimistic, I promise. In fact, it might be one of the healthiest corrections the gaming industry has ever experienced. Consumers are becoming more selective. They're rewarding studios that consistently deliver quality. They're supporting developers who respect their time. They're waiting before spending money when something feels unfinished. That's exactly how markets are supposed to work. Trust becomes valuable because it isn't automatic. It has to be earned. And every great game, whether it's a brand new IP, an indie game that blew up, or the next installment in a legendary franchise, has the opportunity to earn it. Players haven't stopped embracing new ideas. Look at the breakout hits that seemingly come out of nowhere over the last decade. When a game launches in a polished state, offers compelling gameplay, and respects its audience, players are eager to champion it. Innovation hasn't disappeared. The standard for earning attention has simply become higher. Maybe gamers aren't becoming more nostalgic. Maybe we're becoming more careful. Every disappointing launch teaches us to wait. Every unfinished release encourages a little more skepticism. Every polished experience reminds us why we fell in love with the game in the first place. And every great remake succeeds for a reason that has very little to do with the past, because the past already answered the question every player asks before purchase: is this worth my time? That's why older games continue to thrive, that's why legendary franchises keep returning, and that's why nostalgia alone can never explain what's going on right now. Because nostalgia is an emotion. Trust is a decision. One reminds us why we loved a game. The other determines if we're willing to buy it again. And the future of gaming won't belong to the companies with the biggest budgets, or the largest maps, or the most aggressive monetization strategies. It'll belong to the studios that consistently earn something far more valuable: our confidence, our time, and ultimately, our trust. But that's just my perspective, and now I want to hear yours. Have gamers become more nostalgic, or have we simply become more cautious? What's the last new game you bought on day one? And when was the last time you went back to a game you had already finished years ago? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Got chain for $5?
Got it.
Chain me on.
All right.
Oh, man, get my $5 on.
All right, bro.
Man, get my $5 on, man. Ah! Ah! my $5! Get my $5! Get my motherfucking $5, man. Man, stop playing me, man. Give me my $5! Ah!